Hello everyone. Facebook keep changing stuff, so I apologise if this has come up different for a notification than others. Fingers crossed you guys should find it. I'll put a little, let's see if I can put a note on there. Don't know why they have to keep playing. But yeah, I'll link this video to the event that I set up. I don't know why I tried every avenue, it wouldn't work. I don't know what was going on. But hopefully some people will join in. Say hi if you're there. Okay. Right, well I'll get started for those that catch up later, I know you do. So Pink Ink Designs just released literally this week their new 3 new stamps for their Fauna series, which is the Fabulous Feline, Guinea Wig and Jeeves and Worcester. So I'm going to be using the Fabulous Feline of this one today. And obviously I haven't got the card anymore, so I had to print off my picture that I took so that I can work from it. I'm going to do it in a different colour today, just for change of tactic, to show that it doesn't just have to be pink. You can obviously add other colours to it, if you want to do like green and yellow or pink and blue or whatever you wanted to, or keep it monochrome like I did. Entirely up to you, but it's just sort of how to do the background, how to stamp and colour the individual components and layer it up, and yeah, so I hope you have fun. I'll go these 2 seconds. Oh, that's me. Right, so the first thing we need to do is I'll leave that there, is the background. So for the background I'm using the Pink Ink multi-surface paint. Like I said, I'm going to do blue this time, so it's the Atlantic blue luster, but last time I used the hot pink to do that original one. Now there's 2 different ways you can do this. I've made myself a spray bottle, so I mean you can get these on the internet or in like Boots and Superdrug and things like that, and it's literally a tablespoon, I would say, a good squirt of the paint in the bottom, and then fill the rest up with water and you'll get the right consistency. Give it a good old shake, and you can use it that way. If you haven't got any spray bottles to hand, you can obviously use a paint palette, put a little bit in your palette and some water, and then I'll show you the other way of doing it. So if you have got a spray bottle handy, you can obviously, this is Bockingford card. This isn't actually the hot press super smooth, this is cold press grain, or I can't remember exactly, but it's still Bockingford, but it's not the smooth one. For some reason I ordered the wrong one. So literally spray bottle, and you can spray a couple in the middle. And if you wanted to water it out a bit, or make it go further, you can obviously use a bit of water. Oops. To move it around however you want to, have a bit of a play. But the idea is that you get colour in the middle and you've got some white space around the outside. You don't want to be covering the whole card. That's the idea. And if possible, to leave this part to dry naturally. If you don't, if I show you on this one, and you dry it with a heat gun, you'll end up with like little patches. I don't know if you can see that, but because it's almost forcing it to dry too quickly in one area. So if you like that effect and you don't mind it, then fine, do it that way. But if not, then leave it to dry naturally. So I'll just put that to one side, because while we're doing everything else, hopefully that should dry and we can use that one. Let's put that up there. It's obviously going to fall off. Okay, right, so the other way to do it, I just get my okay, so this is just it was a lid. I've got a gel plate that came in this plastic lid, but you can use cardboard box or anything you feel like to, well, cardboard box, it needs to be plastic. I normally use this for my sprays, but as you can see I didn't then, and then I knocked up my bit of paper. So we've got the, our paint palette and water, and then just need a brush. So we are going to get a little bit of the paint on there and just wiggle it on. You could obviously do this on your craft mat, that's fine. So do some out there, and then you can water it out again if you want it. Just bear in mind the size of the card you're going to use. So you can do it with a brush, or you can get your water spray to it again. So just to water it out, however you feel you want it, because obviously you can layer this up again. So if you didn't feel it was dark enough the first time, you can do it again, and it will give you a different impression. Oh, paint dripping everywhere. And then just take your card, place it over the top, and then that will give you your image there. And again, if you didn't want all these, because obviously I'm using a grained card, so I've got the ripples there, so while it's still wet you can obviously add some water to it, or use your paintbrush and spray it out however you want to, and that gives you a slightly different effect too. So it's just, like I say, this is background, you're barely going to see any of this, it's just, you know, just to give you a colour there. So we'll leave that to dry again while we work on the other bits, because we can carry on with the rest of that when that's dry. So for the main parts, I have stamped out all the elements that you need. So from the Fabulous Feline, I've stamped out this little character here twice. So I want his whole thing there, and then just his paw. This is the Bockingford Smooth I'm using for this one, by the way. And then I've also stamped out from the same set the little mouse there as well. And then from the Pink Ink Designs again, Woodbeard Hobgoblin number 3, I've used this leaf here. I quite like that. And I've stamped 2 of those out. You need 1 or 2, it's completely up to you how you want to lay it out. And the flowers come from the rose hip. So the flowers and the other leaves. So I've got the big flower, little flower, and the big leaves, and those all come from there too. So I've stamped out a couple of each one. So to colour these, we are going to use the paints for these. So the same Atlantic blue multi-surface paint that we used for the first one. So let's get, I'm going to use a water brush I think, rather than paintbrush, but only for convenience. So add a little bit of water in our thing, hopefully you can see that. Oh. Okay, and I want it quite watery, if I'm honest, because it's meant to look like just a wash. That's all I did on the original. So bear in mind I'm going to cut these out, so it doesn't really matter. So it's just a really rough, I'm not colouring in the lines because I'm going to cut these out. It's just to give it a hint of colour, that's all. So see, this doesn't take any skill whatsoever to do this. It's just adding a hint of colour to it. And obviously you can make them as dark or light as you wanted. So you can go back in. Okay, and for these leaves I wanted it to be almost pure colour, so I'm just not as much water this time. I'm just going to go over the whole thing like that. Oops. There we go, and that's your flowers and everything coloured. Okay, and then for the mouse and the cats. Now there's a couple of different ways you can do this. So basically all you're doing is just adding some shading you're not really colouring them at all. So all we're going to do is use a watercolour pencil, which I moved. Of course I moved it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I've got an Inktense ink black one here. You could use, like I did in my last video, I used a pencil and a blending stump. So you could use that if you wanted to practice with that. But I'm going to use a little bit of watercolour on here. So it's just, this one is only going to be the paw. So I'm just going to put a little bit of darkness around the edge. And then water it out. So it just takes off the edge of the white. That's all I want it to do. And using the shading that's already in him. So it's got all these bits where you see all the lines and stuff. That's where you want your darker bits. So start with those, and then while it's still wet, you can wash it back out again. You haven't got to worry, obviously, about colouring his paw. Little black nose. There we go. On there. I tend to find that under their chins is a little bit darker as well, so just going to wash that out there. Make sure we've got rid of any harsh lines that we do or don't want. And this one, although it probably didn't say so, is that I'm trying to keep within the lines this time, because when I fussy cut this out, I'm going to keep all the whiskers and everything, so I do want a white edge. So it's literally to add shading to the cat. And it just takes off that harshness of the white. And then the same with the mouse. So he's going to be a little bit darker underneath. You can see where the lines are there already. And then just wash that out again. And that's it. That's as difficult as that gets, which is lovely. So give that a quick blast with a heat gun just to dry them off. And then we're going to add some glitter onto it as well. Obviously these paints have got a luster in them anyway, but I do like to add extra bit of glitter. Again, you've got two options with the glitter, and I did use a mix of the both on here. So Pink Ink obviously have their Sparkle Star Sparkle paint, which you can use, and obviously that will dry quicker than, say, like the glitter glues, like stickles, things like that. But it will leave obviously a flat glitter, and you can mix it with other paints and things like that sort of thing. So I'm going to do that on the edges of the white animals, as it were, and then I'll use the stickles. It's crystal stickles it is, and all I've done is because I found I had quite a few of them, and when they get right down to their last bits, I don't know about you, but I can't get them to squeeze out anymore. You use about halfway and then you can't get any more, so I literally got a jam jar and I cut off the tops and put them all into a jar. So now I've got glitter glue whenever I need it. So I find that's quite handy. So then I need a paintbrush. So it's a dry brush I'm going to use for using the stickles, but for the paint I'll need a wet brush for that. So I've already put out my my paint, my multi-surface paint on there. So I'm just going to get a wet brush and then mix of water. I don't want too much water, but enough that it's then fluid. That's what you want. So out of the gloopy, basically. There we go. And then I'm literally going to go round the edges. So and into where the fluff is. So I don't know if you can see, but that just adds just a twinkle on the edge. If you wanted more of a twinkle, then use a glitter glue, but I just wanted a twinkle, that's all. After all, he's still a cat. Mischievous. Okay. Get it all into his whiskers and his fluff that's coming up. And then the same with the little mouse. So pretty much going to cover the whole mouse with it. There we go. And he just ends up with a sparkle. Hopefully you can see that on there. Okay. And then for the actual leaves and flowers and everything, like I say, I'm going to use the Stickles glitter. So obviously it's more gloopy. So I wanted it to be more precision around like that. I'm not going to do these thin leaves. I may do them afterwards once they're cut out, but they're a bit fiddly for cutting out once you've got glitter on them. So it's best to just leave it till afterwards. But this is obviously easier to do while it's flat. Okay, that's that bit done. And then the last thing on the flowers is to add liquid pearls. So there's loads of different, obviously there are different varieties of this that you can get, but these are the ones that I have. And this colour is ocean blue. And so in the centre of the flowers there's like a big dot and then lots of little dots. So we're going to do little dots first. Just dabbing them on like that, and then one big dot in the middle. I'll show you that, and do the same with the others. So little dots first, big dot in the middle, little dots, big dot, little dots, big dot. Done. Okay, and then you'll need to leave that to dry, because no matter how much you put a heat gun on liquid pearls, it won't dry it. So you could cut out, if we can heat the rest of it, and then you can obviously cut out your cat and your mice and things while you're waiting for the liquid pearls to dry. But the liquid pearls will take a little bit longer. I think it's about, let's see if it says on the actual back. Yeah, 2 to 3 hours. So, I mean, depending on how warm your house is, they probably won't take that long. But it just means you're not going to smudge it. You don't want to do that. Okay, so obviously bearing that in mind, I have already pre-cut. Now, like I said, I'm going to fussy cutting round so that you can see all the whiskers and all the everything like that. You don't have to do this. Obviously, if you find it's too fiddly, just cut round the actual cat. It's absolutely fine. You know, you can always pre-stamp it first and then stick this on the top. But I wanted it to be that the white was sticking out, so I quite liked that. But yeah, it is a little fiddly, so take your time. Try not to cut off too many if you're intending on keeping the whiskers. And then obviously cut out his paw. And then we've got all the leaves. Yeah, leaves. Oops, leaves. Flowers, flowers, flowers. Flowers. And our mouse. Yep. Okay. So we've got those bits ready to go now because they're all cut out. We just put that to one side over there while it's drying. And then we need to do the words as well. So we've got the 2 words that come with this set are meow and you're the cat's whisker. So I'm going to be using both of them, and I thought for a contrast of having one that's black stamped on white and one that's white stamped on black, just for the contrast of it. So I'm just going to show you how I did that. So let me just put these to one side. Put them back in their bag actually. I don't lose them. I know what I'm like. I'll put them down somewhere. I won't find them again. There we go. Okay, so to do these, this one, the size of it, by the way, is 1 1/4 inch by 4 1/2 inch, and that one is 1 inch by I can't remember. I thought I was going to be able to remember that. Obviously not. By 1 7/8, I guess. It's just basically so that you can stamp and it gives you a slight border for doing the edging. So basically I'm using the VersaFine to stamp this one, and then I'm going to use clear embossing powder. So you need to be quite quick with how you do it. So let me just get this my stamping block. Oh, it was there a minute ago. Okay. So actually, I'm going to use a different one. Apologies. Have one size for everything. Okay. Right. So we've got a stamping block. We also need our clear embossing powder. So I've got a clear and white to use in a minute. Oh, I'm knocking everything over now. Trying to be prepared. And I've got a spare bit of paper to collect my crystal clear afterwards. So, because we're using crystal clear, you haven't got to worry about using an anti-static pad or anything, because you won't see it if it goes over. So it's absolutely fine. But one thing you do need to do is work quickly when you're using the VersaFine, because it will dry, well, it will sink in very quickly. So you need to make sure that you add your clear embossing powder straight away. I'm also going to make sure I've got some tweezers handy as well, because I'll burn my fingers quickly. Tweezers. See, I need to make sure I've got everything to hand before I do it. Right, so we're just going to line that up. The centre. Okay. Okay, right, so that's stamped out there. Clear embossing powder straight away while it's still wet. Give it a gentle tap. You don't want to flick it. If you've got any bits that are loose, you can either take a little paintbrush to it, or just with your fingernail just get rid of any loose bits. Put that to one side for the minute. And then, so we don't burn our fingers, good old tweezers and the heat gun. Let there, because it's not going to stick very well until it's got warm. Just let the heat gun get warm before you go at it. And then the magic happens. Woo. The cat's whiskers. There we go. And in case you're wondering, that tiny little line I've got across there is a cat whisker, which is just typical. I try to keep them out of here where possible, but it never works. I don't know if any of you have the same trouble. Okay, right. Let's put my clear back in there, so it's ready to go for the next bit. Okay, so the edging around the outside, how I've done that bit. Magic Sharpie. Yeah, it is literally a Sharpie pen. That's all I'm going to use to go around the outside. And then once I've done the outside, then I use a quickie glue pen over the top to put the clear embossing powder over the top. I find this is, I know obviously you could get an ink pad and rub it down the side and do that, but I find that you're not going to get a straighter line as you may do with a pen. So yeah, I'm just going to start on here. And I say that and I'm probably going to have a really wobbly line this time, but just take your time with it and you'll get the desired line width that you want. Okay. And I did have a play. If you haven't got a quickie glue pen, or obviously you can use a clear, you know, on the embossing pads. You can use water. You need to just use a water brush. Just wipe it. I'll show you on one of the ends. One thing I did find is that it sort of pulls a bit weird. I'm not sure, but because this is just giving it a glossy on the outline of it, I wasn't that fussed about it. But where's my water brush gone? Yell if you spot my water brush. I've obviously put it somewhere safe. Water brush. Oh, there it is. Okay, so make sure it's wet on there, and then just go over so it's shiny, like that, and then should be able to, there you go, and it will stick to it. So obviously it's not great for doing words and things because you need to draw straight over it, but for doing an edge like this, it works okay. I don't know if you can see what I mean by it does sort of it sort of pulls together, but I quite like the effect. And obviously if you haven't, you know, if you haven't got a clear embossing pad and you wanted to have a go, then you can, but I'm going to use a quickie glue pen for the rest of it. So just going over the black line that's already there. There we go, and then back to my clear embossing powder over there. Okay. And then because I've done the whole length, I'm going to have to hold it with my tweezers again so I don't burn myself. And I'm going to heat that up. By the way, if you are using a Sharpie doing this and you heat it, Sharpies smell funny when you heat them. I couldn't work out what the smell was the other day, but that is what it is. It's because they smell funny when they get hot. So I don't know if you can see the difference between using water and using a quickie glue pen, but there isn't really that much difference. And like I said, it's just giving you the gloss on the outside. So that's how you end up with that one. So that is the black and white, and then to do the other one. I seem to lose more embossing powder by spilling it than I do actually using it. Okay, so we want the white one for this one. So I have a white stamping pad, which is an archival, brilliant white archival Moonlight White it is. You could obviously Versacraft do their own white one, or you can get other white ink pads, however you wanted to, or you can use clear. Because we're using the white embossing powder, you can obviously use clear, but I find that using the white just means if the embossing powder misses anything, you will obviously still get the white on the background. So we want our meow, which is there. So I'm just going to use whites. I keep forgetting to look at your comments. I'm sorry, I'm trying to glance, but I'm sure I'm missing some. Okay, so I'm just going to line that up in the centre. One thing I do find with when I do the white is I'm going to double emboss it, which I will show you what I mean in a second. So we've got the one stamped once, and then we're going to put on white powder. Again, gentle tap. And then as soon as I've heated it, while it's still hot and nice and soft, I'm going to put the powder on again, so we'll get a second layer on there. What this will do is make it it'll flow together better, and you won't end up with so many little spots, which I will show you in a minute. Okay, so if I quickly show you, this is layer 1, so you can see there's a couple of sections missing. If you do it again, heat it again. So it's just made it a little bit smoother on there. You can see on the end it hasn't quite done it. When that's cool, you can always go at it with a quickie glue gun and fill in those little points, or even with your water brush, like I said before, to fill in that. And then for the edges, it's exactly the same. So you can either use a water brush or you can use your quickie glue pen. Now you don't need to do obviously the outline for it this time because it's going to be white. So just going to scribble on a little space, a little line, sprinkle, because it's so small. We're going to hold with tweezers so we don't burn our fingies. We're going to double emboss that as well. Bear in mind, while you're doing the outline, this will reheat the words at the same time, so just make sure you don't dunk your fingers in it, because you'll end up with a nice fingerprint through it. I've done that many times, and you'll normally burn your finger too. So yeah, so that is how that one is achieved. Okay, so hopefully by now our background should be dry. So let's just put these bits lids back on so I don't spill them everywhere. Okay, we've got our 2 bits there. Get that bit out of the way. Right, so our 2 backgrounds we did. So that was the one we did with the spray, and then that one was the one we did with the actual paint. So I'm just going to give them a quick blast. Obviously with these paints, as soon as they're heated, they are permanent, so they're not going to smudge again. So you can obviously wait for them to dry naturally and then heat them, and that will set them, or you can heat it straight away. That's up to you, however you want to do it. Okay, so I'm happy with those. So also what we want to do is don't know if you can see on the original one there, but there are some splashes on here too. So the way I did that was, obviously you can use your paintbrush again with the actual paint and water, or if you've got the spray bottle you can then take the nozzle out and just flick it on there, and that will give you your splashes. So again, we need to let that dry to do that. So also one thing, see in the background of here, I don't know if you can quite see that. I'm sorry, this is a picture, so it's not the great, but I've got some kind of mesh underneath here. So all that, there's a couple of different things you can use depending on what you've got, but I've got like a roll of this stuff, and it's stretchy, so you can obviously bend it and stretch it and maneuver it how you want to. It's a bit like a fishing net sort of thing. You can also use like a, I'm sure you guys that got any mixed media have got this sort of stuff hanging around, this sort of netting, or like a bandage, you know, like bandage tool, that's what they call it. And again, this has quite a nice effect because you can pull off the edges and get quite a nice ragged edge sort of thing. But these will colour, so I've used the multi-surface paint again and coloured it. So if I just get that little bit there that I did. So while I was doing my prep for this, I did it because it would take a little bit longer to dry. And then oh, okay. Hubby's come in with instructions. He said I must say hello to people. So apparently I need to say hello to Mum. Hello, Mum. Hopefully she'll wave or give me a little thumbs up in a minute. Becky, Evelyn, Kathy and Rebecca. Ah, excellent, thank you. So you can see what I'm doing here, just stretching it out a little bit just to give me a bit there, and I'm probably going to end up with glitter all over my fingers. But then this will just add a little bit of texture, and again, this, you know, once it's coloured, it's coloured, and it's quite nice. But if you didn't just want to have the just a plain background, just adds a little bit of texture to it. So we've got our splashes that we've just done there. They're still drying at the minute. See if I can encourage them. Some quite big ones there. Hope I'm going to be able to finish this right away. I realise there's quite a few different parts to building this up, but let's get on there. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we want to get our little pieces, and we're going to lay out where we want. So the main bits are the actual cat and the words. So obviously, as I'd already done this, I know where these are going to go. But I just wanted to show you, just sort of, once you've cut all your pieces out, just have a play, position them where you want them to go, so you've sort of got a rough idea of how that's going to work. And then you can see on here that I've stamped on the background as well with these other bits. So I just want to make a note of that I'm stamping off the edge of where the background colour is, pretty much, to get this. So let's just do that now. So there's no real method to this at all, other than, like I say, just to stamp off the edge if you think that most of the middle is going to be covered. So let's do a couple of the leaves first. So this is the leaf from the Woodbeard set. And this VersaCraft one is cerulean blue, in case you wanted to see that. Oh, my dad's watching too. Is there no sport on, Dad? Okay. Okay. So you can see it's quite subtle. If you didn't want it subtle, obviously use a darker blue, but I've picked a blue that's as close to the original colour as possible, so that you wouldn't it's not going to look as obvious. It's also, if this is the first time you're playing with this kind of mixed media background, the more subtle the better, because you can you get used to what it does when you stamp, you know, what it looks like, and have a play, build some backgrounds and see what you like. So let's add fishies in as well. So our lovely little what should I say, our little fish skeleton. So let's just put one down there. That's it. And then put another one on the top there, I think, sort of out there maybe. There we go, just use a couple for that one. And then also to use words in the background as well. So the meow that we had, it all ties it together. So, and not necessarily to use them the right way up. So it's going to have one there. And you'll see I'm also using the second and third generation sometimes of these stamps. So I'm going to assume that some people don't know what I mean by that. So first, it was one of those things that came out ages ago. I can't even remember who probably pioneered it. But you've got first generation is when you first stamp it. The second one is without re-inking to do it again. And then third generation would be again. And more than likely, by that time, you virtually run out of ink, depending on how juicy your ink pad is. But these are really handy for creating backgrounds when you don't want a perfect image every time. You know, it's great fun for doing that. And then the last thing is, because we've got blacks in the main image, I want to add some black ones too. So these I'm not going to do first and second generation, I'm just going to do the one stamp. So I've got my VersaFine out. And I was going to do some that would stick up. So if he's going to be there, obviously there's no point stamping one you're not going to see, so I'm going to have one sticking out there. And then another one maybe out the bottom here. Okay, clean that off. And then also the words here as well. So let's get our meow. And we're going to have that there. Okie dokie. Thank you, Mum. Like I say, I want you to see it all, and I feel bad for not responding to your messages straight away, but I will have a look through afterwards. I want you to see these and try different things and see if you like them. Right, so obviously at the moment this isn't, you know, it's not looking like anything, but once you start putting stuff on top, it will do. So got all our bits and pieces that we're going to stick on there. Now you can use 3D gel, PVA, your normal PVA glue, whichever your favourites are, or I am going to be using a matte gel medium to stick these down on, because I've got it gives me texture to do it, which is quite nice. Get all over my fingers. There are loads of different consistencies to these. You can get quite runny or quite thick, and I've got quite a thick one there. So when it comes to putting layers in, depending on how much I put on the back will depend on how thick it's actually going to get. So I'm going to use this same paintbrush I use for my glitter to stick everything down. So the first thing I'm going to stick down is my little bit of mesh. So I just think that I only want a little bit to hold it down, because everything else that goes on top will hold it, so it'll be fine. You can obviously use a glue gun as well if you wanted to, for sticking everything down, depending on your preference, your normal crafting. So the next thing is going to be the man himself. So let's put some glue on the back there. Oh, we're in again.
Can you show the original as well a bit more?
Oh, sorry.
Request from mummy.
Request from mum.
Just want to make sure well.
Okay.
Your dad's washing as well.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah. Thank you. Okay, so I'm not bothered about getting glue on all these fine little bits because I think it adds to the texture of having bits sticking up, so I'm quite happy with that sticking out there, but I'm going to use my tweezers so I can see where it's going. So just going to position him reasonably in the middle, to a little bit to the right but not much, and just stick him down there. Let's hold him down a sec because I'm using that matte gel, so it'll take a second to grip. But once it does, it's there for good. There we go. And matte gels and things are, if you've not heard of them or not used them before, they obviously dry clear, and they're great for mixed media products because they can hold everything from wood to metal to fabrics, everything you can possibly think of, and they give you the same wiggle room, and they don't smell. I don't know if you've got my mum always says when she uses the like the pin fair glue, it always absolutely stinks every time. So, and of course I don't know about you, but I find I pop them very quickly, so I end up having, yeah, I think that one's gone solid now, but I end up having to put a pin in the rest of it to get anything out. But obviously, as we're using a flexible glue, it also means I can move stuff around while I'm doing it. So I'm going to put that in next. So I'm going to put quite a fair bit on the back of this because I want it to stand out and I want to tuck other things underneath it. So put that there. Hi Jacqueline. By the way, Jacqueline, your little card I sent out to you, it says it can take 7 to 8 days apparently, so let's see, hopefully that'll get to you nice and safe. So let's put that one in the middle there. Okay, and then we'll tuck this one underneath it. Oh, there we go. Get my tweezers out. Most of the time I use tweezers so I can see. Sometimes your fingers get in the way for seeing things. So it just stops your fingers getting in the way and you don't get as mucky. Okay, so let's get our leaves here. So, oops, a little bit on the back of these. A bit on the back there. Put that bit in there. You can see how that glitter's really showing off on these now. Let's add on these fiddly bits. I know someone commented earlier about my fussy cutting. I don't do all this with scissors. I'd use a scalpel to do these because I find them really fiddly. I wouldn't normally be as fussy with things like this, but I quite liked that one. If you struggle with fussy cutting, best thing you can do is get yourself some heat resistant acetate. Stamp your image onto there, use clear embossing powder or any coloured embossing powder you want to, and cut loosely around the edge of that, and then you can use those the same thing, and they add the same sort of effect, but you haven't got to worry about cutting all these fine little bits out because you won't see it because it will have a clear background. So that's just, you know, something you might want to try. I'm just going to tuck that behind there first. There we go. Put a flower on there. Now obviously you can shape these flowers as well if you wanted to. Just give them a little, with the warmth of your finger, just to shape them a little bit, or use a bone folder or whatever. But obviously because we've put our little liquid pearls on there, we don't want to be mucking around with them too much. So there. How are we doing for time? Yeah, we've still got a little bit. Okay. I realise I'm using my old one for reference here. But like I say, just cut yourself out a load, play with where you want them, position them out, and have a bit of fun with it, really. It's definitely good fun. I love doing mixed media stuff, but I get a bit mucky. This one's one of the cleaner ones as well. Okay, so that there. Like I say, I'm not worried about any of the glue that pops out because it will dry clear. So just a little bit on there. Okay, oh, let's put that one down there, I think. You see how that mesh is just adding just a little bit of extra texture on there. I actually want that one flat. Put that one underneath again. And my last flower, I'm just going to curve this one up a bit. Okay. Okay, so the last bit is to add the paw and this little mouse. So the paw, you can do it, obviously curve it within your fingers or use a bone folder. So bone folder there, so I'm holding it up to the middle and then dragging it out from underneath, like that. So from the middle and then just pulling it out like that. That gives it a bit of a curve. So all that will mean is when I stick it down like that, it's going to look like his paws over the top, like that. So let's add a bit of gel on there. Oh, I need a bit more on this one. Okay. Oh, give it that in a minute. There we go. And then we want to look like he's just accidentally dropped it just a little bit. Mouse has got away. Unfortunately with my cats, the mice aren't always as lucky. And sometimes they are, and sometimes they have fun in the front room for a couple of days until we manage to catch them. We live on the back of a forest, by the way. We're not invested in them. It's just the cats come in. So I'm just going to stick that on there. Like that. And then that is it, I think. So we can obviously mount that onto this card blank, by the way, because it's fitting on an A5 card blank. So the mount is for this is 8 inches by 5.5, and this card blank this card is 7 3/4 by 5 1/4. So obviously when you're done, mount it on black so it would look lovely, and then onto your card, and then that would be it. You can obviously use foam pads or for these bits as well if you didn't have it, but I think that the gel just gives you a bit more wiggle room, especially when you're first playing with this. But yeah, I'm happy with that. And one thing you could do also if you wanted to is to use some white splashes on it. So I'm just going to do that actually while we've got a couple of minutes left, so just to show you what I mean by that. So I can't remember if I've shown this before, but a bit like we did with the water spray, So if you have, I'm using the white multi-surface paint, but you could use gesso or white acrylic or the white gouache thing. Gouache, isn't it? That's what I tried to pronounce it last time, didn't I? So get our. I need a water brush. Brush. Oh. Okay, remember to clean all these brushes afterwards. I know what I'm like. So you can see it's quite a milky consistency there. So I'm just going to get that there, and then we're just going to flick a couple of bits just on that outer edge there. Again, it all help just bring everything together. I'll just put that on the black background there. I'll just bring that up. Hopefully that's you can see. Oh. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the video today. I just managed to get that within the hour, and I'll think of something else for next week. I'm not sure about. I don't think I can send. Well, I could send that out as long as it's within the UK. I could send that out to the UK. I think it might be a bit too 3D to send out to non-UK. I know I did a couple last week, but I'm quite happy to send to UK. So if you'd like to have me have this card, I will send it out to you. So I'll pick someone from who's watched today. Thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate it. And I will see you next week. Thank you very much. Bye bye.